My family ignored my birthday, not knowing I inherited $1,620,000 and a house from my great-aunt. A month later they showed up. "We think you should give us the house and half the money." I said no, but they came with things. "Well, let's go. My name is Cora Ellison, and I'm 26 years old. I work as a nurse at the city hospital, pulling double shifts most weeks just to make ends meet. My apartment is tiny, but it's mine, and I was so excited about finally throwing myself a proper birthday party there. I have parents who live across town. Mom works at a credit union and Dad does construction. Then there's my younger sister, Riley, who's 24. She graduated from art college last year and calls herself an aspiring artist, though she's never actually sold a single painting. But hey, she found herself a wealthy boyfriend who keeps organizing these fancy exhibitions for her work. The guy really knows how to put together an amazing buffet after each show, too. I'd been planning this birthday party for 2 whole weeks. I made a guest list, bought decorations, planned the menu. I invited Mom, Dad, Riley, my cousins, and my aunt and uncle. Nothing too crazy. Just a family gathering at my place to celebrate me turning 26. I was really looking forward to it. 3 hours before everyone was supposed to show up, my phone buzzed with messages from Mom. "Cora, don't wait for us. We won't be coming to your party." I stared at the screen, confused. What did she mean they wouldn't be coming? "We all went to the neighboring state to see Riley's exhibition. There's going to be press there and even television coverage. This is a big opportunity for your sister. Hope you understand." That was it. No apology. No happy birthday. Just that they ditched my birthday for Riley's art show that would probably have 5 people there besides the family. I sat on my couch looking at all the food I'd prepared, the decorations hanging up, the cake sitting in my fridge. 2 weeks of planning and excitement, and they just bailed like it was nothing. The worst part was knowing they probably preferred Riley's fancy boyfriend's buffets over my homemade birthday spread. Anyway, I get it. The guy has money and throws these elaborate post-exhibition parties with expensive wine and catered food. My little apartment gathering with store-bought chips and homemade sandwiches probably seemed pretty pathetic in comparison. I tried not to cry, but I was really hurt. This was supposed to be my special day, and my own family couldn't be bothered to show up. They'd rather chase after Riley's art career that wasn't going anywhere than spend a few hours celebrating their other daughter. The evening dragged on. I ate birthday cake alone while watching Netflix, still in my party dress with nowhere to go. I kept thinking about how excited I'd been, how I'd cleaned my whole apartment and spent money I didn't really have on decorations and food. Around 9 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello. Is this Cora Ellison? My name is Robert Holden. I'm a lawyer. I'm calling about your great-aunt Evelyn Ellison." My great-aunt. She was my mom's aunt who lived on the other side of the city. Mom always said she was mean and had a terrible temper, so most of the family never really had contact with her. "What about her?" "Yes. She left you everything in her will. You're her sole beneficiary. I need you to come to my office to handle the paperwork for receiving your inheritance." An inheritance? From great-aunt Evelyn. I figured it was probably just her old house, if that. Mom always said she didn't have anything valuable. "Okay," I said. "When should I come in?" We set up an appointment for the next day. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about when I first really got to know my great-aunt during college. Mom had asked me to visit her because she and Dad didn't want to deal with her. "Just stop by for 5 or 10 minutes, Mom had said. "Someone should check on her, but your father and I just can't handle her attitude." I almost didn't go. After hearing Mom call her mean and nasty for years, I really didn't want to deal with some cranky old lady, but I felt guilty. So I finally drove over there one afternoon. On the way, I realized it would be rude to show up empty-handed. So I stopped at the supermarket and bought a whole bag of stuff. Cookies, fruit, some nice tea, chocolates. It cost me like $40 I didn't really have as a college student. When I knocked on her door, this tiny old woman answered. She looked surprised to see me. "Cora, is that really you?" "Hi, great-aunt Evelyn. Mom asked me to stop by and see how you're doing." She invited me in for tea. Her house was old but really cozy with plants everywhere and the smell of something baking. We sat in her kitchen and talked for over an hour. She wasn't mean at all. She was actually really sweet and funny. She told me stories about when my mom was little, asked about my nursing studies, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. From that day on, I started visiting her almost every week throughout college and after. I never told my family about it because I knew Mom would just complain about me encouraging her. I'd bring groceries, help with her garden, and she'd always have fresh cookies or cake waiting for me. Last week, she died peacefully in her sleep. I organized her entire funeral by myself. None of my family came, not even Mom or Dad. They all said they barely knew her and didn't see the point. I was the only family member there, sitting in that funeral home with maybe 6 other people who actually cared about her. I figured whatever Great Aunt Evelyn had left me was probably just her small old house and maybe a few thousand in savings, if that. Mom and Dad always said she didn't have any real money or property worth mentioning. They'd even told me before the funeral that they didn't need to come because she probably didn't have anything to inherit anyway, and that her house was probably mortgaged to the bank. The next morning I met with the lawyer at his office. Mr. Halden was a serious-looking guy in his 50s with a big mahogany desk covered in legal papers. "Please sit down," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I have some documents to go over with you regarding your great-aunt's estate." He opened a thick folder and pulled out several papers. "Your great-aunt left you her house, as you probably expected, but she also left you her savings account. The total amount in her account is $1,620,000. My mouth dropped open. "Are you sure? Did I hear that right? My great-aunt had over $1 million. "Yes, that's correct," he replied. "Your great-aunt was widowed about 15 years ago. Her husband left her a considerable sum of money when he passed. She lived very modestly and economically, but she was quite smart about her finances. She hired a financial consultant who helped her invest her money successfully over the years." Felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Great Aunt Evelyn, who lived in that simple house with the old furniture and who I brought groceries to every week, had been secretly wealthy this whole time. "I don't understand," I said. "She lived so simply. I mean, her house was nice but nothing fancy. She never acted like she had money." Mr. Holden smiled. "She was a very humble woman. She preferred to live quietly and save her money rather than spend it on luxury items. She told me once that material things didn't bring her happiness, but knowing her money was secure did." He handed me a stack of papers. "These are all the inheritance documents. You'll need to sign here, here, and here." As I signed the papers, my hands were actually shaking. $1,620,000. I kept repeating it in my head, trying to make it feel real. "There's one more thing," Mr. Holden said, reaching into his desk drawer. "Your great-aunt wanted me to give you this business card. It's for her financial consultant, Marcus Chen. She specifically requested that I recommend you continue working with him if you choose to." I took the card and stared at it. Marcus Chen, Financial Advisory Services. She said he was trustworthy and had helped her double her money over the past 10 years. She thought you might want to meet with him. After leaving the lawyer's office, I sat in my car for 20 minutes just trying to process everything. I was a millionaire. Me, Cora Ellison, who worked double shifts as a nurse just to afford my tiny apartment, was suddenly wealthy. I called the number on Marcus Chen's business card right from my car. "Hi, my name is Cora Ellison. I'm Evelyn Ellison's great-niece. She left me her inheritance, and Mr. Holden gave me your card." "Oh yes, Cora," he said warmly. "I've been expecting your call. Evelyn spoke about you often. I'm so sorry for your loss. She was a wonderful woman and a smart client." "Thank you," I said quietly. "I'd like to meet with you if possible. I have no idea what to do with this kind of money." The next day I met Marcus at his office downtown. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his early 40s, with a kind face and a confident handshake. "Your great-aunt was one of my favorite clients," he said as we sat down. She was so careful with her money but also willing to take smart risks when I explained the investments to her. I still can't believe she had so much money, I admitted. She was very proud of you, you know, Marcus said softly. She told me about your nursing career and how hard you worked. She said you were the only family member who ever visited her or cared about her as a person. That made my throat tighten with emotion. I missed her so much already. So, what do you think I should do with the money? Asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Well, first I'd recommend we set up an LLC for you. That will help protect your assets and give you some tax advantages. Then we can discuss investment strategies based on your goals. An LLC. I repeated. A limited liability company, he explained. Think of it as creating a small business entity that owns your money and property instead of you owning it directly. It provides legal protection and makes managing large amounts of money much easier. Over the next hour, Marcus explained different investment options and helped me understand how to handle my new wealth responsibly. He seemed genuinely interested in helping me, not just making money off my account. I think your great-aunt chose well when she picked you as her heir, he said as our meeting ended. She always said family should stick together and take care of each other. Within a week, Marcus had helped me set up the LLC and transfer all the money and property into it. I was now the owner of Ellison Holdings LLC, which sounded so official and important. The best part was that I could finally move out of my cramped apartment. I quietly packed up my stuff and moved into Great-Aunt Evelyn's house. It felt weird at first, sleeping in her guest room and using her kitchen, but also comforting somehow, like she was still there watching out for me. I didn't tell anyone in my family about the inheritance. After the way they treated me on my birthday, and considering how they'd never bothered to visit Great-Aunt Evelyn or even come to her funeral, I figured it was none of their business what she'd left me. 2 weeks passed peacefully in my new life. I kept working my nursing shifts, but now I didn't have to stress about rent or groceries or any of that stuff. For the first time in my adult life, I felt financially secure. The silence from my family continued. Nobody called to apologize for missing my birthday or even to ask how I was doing. It was like they'd completely forgotten I existed the moment they left for Riley's art show. Then one day Mom called out of nowhere. Cora, what happened to your aunt's house? Did the bank take it? I was caught off guard. That's confidential information, I said evenly. I'm not going to comment on that. And I hung up. Sitting there, I realized what had probably happened. When I was at the city administration office signing all the inheritance paperwork, I'd run into Mrs. Perry, one of Mom's friends from the credit union. She'd seen me there with all those legal documents and probably put 2 and 2 together. That woman loved to gossip, so she definitely told Mom what she saw. Sure enough, a week later there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Mom, Dad, and Riley standing there with serious expressions on their faces. We need to talk, Mom said, pushing past me into the house. They all walked into the living room like they owned the place. Riley looked around with wide eyes, probably noticing how nice everything actually was compared to what Mom had always said about the house. We know you took all of Grandma's inheritance, Mom said, crossing her arms. Mrs. Perry saw you at City Hall with a stack of legal papers. You stayed calm. Riley jumped in. I never thought you could be so sneaky, Cora. Acting all quiet and innocent while you had this whole plan to steal Grandma's stuff. Steal? Shot back. She left it to me in her will. Dad cleared his throat. We've talked about this, and we think you should give us the house and half the money. I almost laughed. You think I should what? It's only fair, Mom said. She was my aunt, so technically the inheritance should go to me first. You just happened to be there manipulating her in her final years. Manipulating her? I said sharply. I visited her every week and brought her groceries. Where were all of you? That's not the point, Riley snapped. The point is I'm getting married soon, and my fiancé needs to see that I come from a family with property and money. He's wealthy, and I can't look like I'm from some poor family. Dad leaned forward. Look, Cora, we're trying to be reasonable here. We're giving you 1 week to voluntarily hand over the house and half the money. If you don't, we'll take you to court. Get out of my house now. This isn't your house, Riley yelled. Actually it is, I said firmly. I have the legal documents to prove it. They left, but not without a lot of angry muttering and threats about lawyers. As soon as they were gone, I called Marcus. They want to sue me for the inheritance, I told him. That's unfortunate but not uncommon, he replied calmly. Let me give you the name of an excellent property dispute lawyer. Her name is Sarah Whitmore, and she specializes in inheritance cases. I called Sarah Whitmore immediately and explained the situation. Can you bring all your inheritance documents to my office tomorrow? She asked. Sure, but can they actually take it away from me? I asked nervously. Not likely, she said, but let's review everything to be certain. The next day, Sarah looked through all my paperwork carefully. This will is legally bulletproof, she said at last. Your great-aunt had it drawn up properly with witnesses, and you're clearly named as the sole beneficiary. Your family doesn't have a case. Exactly 1 week later, there was another knock at my door. This time Mom and Dad had huge suitcases with them. We're moving in, Dad announced, trying to push past me with his luggage. I blocked the doorway. No, you're not. Mom waved a piece of paper in my face. We found a witness. Mrs. Grant, one of your aunt's old friends, says she was losing her mind near the end. Since the will was signed when she wasn't mentally competent, we can contest it and take the inheritance. You can try, I said, still blocking them from entering. Dad pushed harder with his suitcase. Move, Cora. This is our house now. No, it isn't. Just then, Sarah Whitmore walked out from the kitchen, where she'd been waiting as planned. Excuse me, she said to my parents. I'm Sarah Whitmore, Ms. Ellison's attorney. You have no legal right to be on this property. The only way you'll be allowed inside this house is if you provide a court order showing you have ownership rights. My parents looked stunned to see a lawyer there. We have a witness, Mom repeated weakly. Then take it to court, Sarah said calmly. Until you have a court order, you're trespassing. Dad dropped his suitcase handle. This isn't over. You're right, Sarah said, reaching into her briefcase. Because I have something you should see. She pulled out an official-looking document. Your aunt was a very intelligent woman. At the time she wrote her will, she underwent a complete medical examination to confirm she was of sound mind and memory. This document is signed by her doctor and 3 witnesses, all confirming her mental competence. Mom's face went pale. That's impossible. It's very possible and very legal, Sarah said firmly. Your aunt wanted to make sure no one could question her decision to leave everything to Cora. My parents gathered up their suitcases and left without another word. But I could see the anger and frustration on their faces. After they were gone, I slumped onto the couch, feeling emotionally drained. What happens now? Asked Sarah. Now we wait, she said. They'll either file a lawsuit or they'll realize they don't have a case and give up. Either way, you're protected. I felt relieved but also sad that it had come to this with my own family. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from their lawyer requesting mediation instead of going to court. They want to settle, Sarah explained. That usually means they know their case is weak. We met at Sarah's office with my parents, Riley, and their lawyer. Their lawyer immediately started talking about their witness, Mrs. Grant. We'd be happy to hear from this witness in court, Sarah said. But first, can you provide her full name and contact information so we can speak with her directly? The other lawyer looked uncomfortable. That information is confidential for now. Well, you'll have to reveal it eventually if you want to use her testimony, Sarah said sharply. My parents asked for 30 minutes to discuss things privately. When they came back, Dad looked defeated. We're willing to drop our legal claims, he said. This is a family matter, and we don't want to air our dirty laundry in public. We just want Cora to give us $220,000 and we'll call it even. I looked him straight in the eye. I'm not giving you a single cent. 2 months passed, and my parents never filed that lawsuit they kept threatening. I guess they finally realized they didn't have a case. But Mom being Mom, she couldn't just let it go quietly. She wrote this long post on Facebook about how I had seized all of Great Aunt Evelyn's inheritance, and hinted that there was something shady about the whole situation. She didn't come right out and accuse me of anything illegal, but she made it sound like I'd somehow tricked or manipulated a poor old woman. The post got tons of comments from relatives I barely talked to, cousins, aunts, uncles. They all came out of the woodwork to shame me and demand that I share the inheritance with the family. It was like a feeding frenzy of people who had never bothered to visit Great Aunt Evelyn suddenly caring deeply about her money. I let them all vent for a day. Then I wrote my own comment. Before you all start shaming me, maybe you should remember that not one of you came to my birthday party 2 months ago. My own family left me sitting alone on my birthday to go to Riley's art show instead. And more importantly, which one of you was at Great Aunt Evelyn's? Riley's art show instead. And more importantly, which one of you was at Great Aunt Evelyn's funeral? I was the only family member there because the rest of you said you barely knew her and didn't see the point in coming. After I posted that, the comment section went completely silent. Nobody had anything to say anymore. Funny how that works. Life went on peacefully after that social media drama died down. I stopped working double shifts at the hospital and cut back to just one shift, which gave me so much more free time. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly exhausted. I started thinking seriously about going back to school to get my bachelor's degree in nursing, maybe even eventually a master's. With my financial situation secure, I could actually focus on advancing my career instead of just surviving paycheck to paycheck. Marcus was still managing my money through the LLC, and he'd been doing a great job growing my investments. I mostly left that stuff to him since he knew way more about finance than I did. The only major expense I was considering was something I'd dreamed about since I was a kid, a trip to Italy. I'd always wanted to see Rome and Florence and all those amazing art museums, but on a nurse's salary, it had never been possible. Then 3 months later I got an email from Riley. I'm getting married in 3 months, and I want to invite you to my wedding. But if you want to come, you need to give me $52,000 first as a wedding gift. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She was literally trying to charge me $52,000 to attend her wedding. I wrote back immediately. I wouldn't come to your wedding even if it was free. And I meant it. After everything they'd put me through, abandoning my birthday, trying to steal my inheritance, threatening to sue me, posting nasty things about me on social media, they thought I'd pay them money for the privilege of watching Riley marry her rich boyfriend? No thanks. I blocked Riley's email address and went back to planning my Italian vacation. Meanwhile, I'd started doing some renovations on Great Aunt Evelyn's house. It had good bones but needed updating. I replaced the old carpet with hardwood floors, updated the kitchen appliances, and converted one of the spare bedrooms into a home office where I could study. It felt good to put my own stamp on the place while still honoring her memory. I kept a lot of her furniture because it was actually really well made. Just needed some refinishing. Working on the house gave me a sense of purpose and connection to Great Aunt Evelyn. Every time I found something of hers, old photos, letters, recipe cards, I felt grateful that she'd chosen me to carry on her legacy. The irony wasn't lost on me that my family had spent years calling her mean and difficult. But she turned out to be the most generous and thoughtful person in our entire family tree. She'd seen something in me that my own parents hadn't, and she'd set me up for a life I never could have imagined. I still missed her terribly. Sometimes I'd be cooking in her kitchen and expect to hear her voice calling from the living room, asking if I wanted tea and cookies. The house felt too quiet without her gentle presence. But I also felt incredibly lucky. How many people get a second chance at life like this? How many people have someone who believes in them enough to change their entire future? My nursing supervisor had noticed I seemed happier and less stressed lately. I told her I'd moved to a better living situation, which was technically true. She didn't need to know about the millions of dollars part. The money was still mostly under Marcus's management. I lived modestly and didn't go crazy buying expensive things. Great Aunt Evelyn had lived simply despite her wealth, and I wanted to follow her example. The security of knowing the money was there was more valuable to me than spending it on luxury items I didn't really need. But that trip to Italy, that was happening. I'd already started researching hotels in Rome and making a list of museums to visit. After years of dreaming about it, I was finally going to see the Sistine Chapel and the Colosseum and eat real gelato in Florence. Great Aunt Evelyn would have loved that. She'd always encouraged me to follow my dreams and not let anyone hold me back. As I sat in her garden one evening watching the sunset and planning my future, I realized that losing my family's respect was a small price to pay for gaining my freedom and self-respect. I'd learned who really cared about me and who just cared about what I could do for them. Great Aunt Evelyn had given me more than money. She'd given me the chance to discover my own worth and live life on my own terms.